Hey everybody, I'm Mike Parejo, excited to be back teaching today as we continue on our series called Royals. And before we get to our passage for today, I don't know if you know this, but this year is the 100th anniversary of Disney. Which I don't know about you, but that sounds crazy to me. Like I don't understand how Disney has been around that long, and maybe that's more a sign of my age, but like it's just weird to think about this company has been around for a century now. And it got me to start thinking about some of my favorite Disney movies over the year. And I remember when I was a kid, one of my very favorites was the old Robin Hood one, where like Robin Hood is a fox and Little John is a bear and King Richard is a lion, things like that. And I kid you not, there's not a week that goes by in my life that I don't start whistling one of the tunes. It's the one that goes, I don't know what the song is. I don't even know if it has lyrics, but that has been embedded in my brain since the movie came out. Like I will always remember that. I always whistle it, and I'm surprised about how many people know exactly what I'm whistling when I'm whistling it. So I loved Robin Hood. As I got older, kind of the new wave of Disney movies started coming out with, I don't know if the Little Mermaid might have been the first, I don't know, but there was like The Little Mermaid and The Lion King and Beauty and the Beast, and all those started coming out in kind of this revamping of Disney movies, and they became great again. And now they're just like this huge conglomerate and machine that just pumps out all sorts of movies and buys everything possible. And so I don't know about the new movies or whatever, but I started thinking about maybe the most underrated Disney movie. And Jeff and I were talking about this. Jeff, our Graham campus pastor, we agree that The Emperor's New Groove is maybe the most underrated Disney film, and it's really unlike any of the others. It's just pure comedy. There's no music. There's no songs in it, which is super unusual for a Disney film, but I love it. It's so funny. I love it so much. And if you haven't seen it, I'll give you just real quick overview of it. It's the story of Emperor Kuzco, who is this 18-year-old emperor who is a complete spoiled brat of a human being, in that anything that Kuzco wants, Kuzco gets, and he is not afraid to use his power to get whatever he wants. In fact, all you need to know about Kuzco, you can learn from checking out this movie poster, okay? Yes, the idea that it's all about me, and that's kind of his life in the beginning of the movie. And so he's faced with this issue, and it's an issue that only one of the local tribe leaders can fix. And so he calls this man named Pacha. He has Pacha come from his village. He has to pack up and haul stuff, and takes him a while to get there. And once he finally gets to the palace, he's only in front of the emperor for a couple of minutes. And the emperor has one question. He's like, tell me about this hill that you live on. And so Pacha describes just kind of the beauty of the hill and how his family's always lived there. And when the sunlight hits the hill just right, these mountains seem to sing, and that's it. That's all that Emperor Kuzco needs to know. He has made his decision based on this information that he's going to turn that hill into his new summer home known as Kuzcotopia. That was the only reason that he wanted this man to come down, because he wanted to find out, is this place good enough for my summer home? And oh, by the way, you and all the villagers have to leave if I'm going to make that my new summer home. Okay, so super greedy. And in a crazy plot twist, then he's turned into a talking llama, and hilarity ensues. And anyway, you'll have to watch the rest of the movie, but it's worth it. It's not very long. It's super funny. Anyway, go watch it. What does this have to talk about? What does this have to do with the series that we're in? Well, one of the temptations of being in leadership is to use your power to merely satisfy your own desires, even if it comes at great cost to other people. And so as we continue on in this series called Royals, we are going to be looking at a king named Ahab. And Ahab actually acts a lot like Emperor Kuzco in The Emperor's New Groove. I wouldn't even be surprised if this story from 1 Kings was actually part of the inspiration for the movie. I know that it probably wasn't, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if that was the case. And so we're going to be looking at one particular account of Ahab's life in 1 Kings chapter 21. So if you have a Bible or the Bible app on a device, go ahead and find your way to 1 Kings 21. We're going to get there in a minute, but first of all, I want to read three different descriptions of Ahab from the book of 1 Kings, three things that the Bible records about him. The first is from 1 Kings chapter 16, verse 30. Ahab, son of Omri, did more evil in the eyes of the Lord than any of those before him. And then just a few verses later, it says, Ahab did more to arouse the anger of the Lord than did all the kings of Israel before him. And then later on in chapter 21, it says this, there was never anyone like Ahab who sold himself to do evil in the eyes of the Lord. This is not the kind of reputation that you want recorded for all of history in the Bible, okay? This idea that Ahab did more evil, he aroused God's anger more than anybody else, that there was never anybody like him. That's not the reputation that you want. Well, why? Why was Ahab so repulsive to God in his leadership? And there are a few reasons, and it begins with how Ahab respected God or didn't respect God and didn't honor God. He had no problems breaking the first two commandments that God had given to Moses and the Israelites, in that Ahab had no issues worshiping other gods, and he had no issues creating idols to worship as well. He married this woman named Jezebel, and she was the daughter of a foreign king, and she worshiped this false god Baal. And what she wanted to do is she wanted to actually make this cult of Baal the official religion of the Israelites. And you can imagine how well that went over with the people. Ahab, was fine with her doing that, and he was also fine with creating these Asherah poles, which were these idols of worship to Baal's female counterpart. And so it's no wonder why Ahab is recorded as being such a terrible royal, in this idea of his lack of respect and honor for God. Because I want you to remember this: when you don't respect the one who is in power over you, you won't show respect for those you have power over. And in our passage that we're going to be looking at today, we're not really looking at one of the ways that Ahab tried to lead the Israelites astray, but more so, we're going to look at a time when he allowed his power to be used really to help himself, instead of to serve the people that he had been tasked to lead. And so we're going to be in 1 Kings chapter 21. I'm going to be reading verses 1 through 8. Sometime later, there was an incident involving a vineyard belonging to Naboth the Jezreelite. The vineyard was in Jezreel, close to the palace of Ahab, king of Samaria. Ahab said to Naboth, "Let me have your vineyard to use for a vegetable garden, since it is close to my palace. In exchange, I will give you a better vineyard, or if you prefer, I will pay you whatever it's worth." But Naboth replied, "The Lord forbid that I should give you the inheritance of my ancestors." So Ahab went home, sullen and angry because Naboth the Jezreelite had said, "I will not give you the inheritance of my ancestors." He lay on his bed sulking and refused to eat. His wife Jezebel came in and asked him, "Why are you so sullen? Why won't you eat?" He answered her, "Because I said to Naboth the Jezreelite, 'Sell me your vineyard, or if you prefer, I'll give you another vineyard in its place.' But he said, 'I will not give you my vineyard.'" Jezebel, his wife, said, "Is this how you act as king over Israel? Get up and eat. Cheer up. I'll get you the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite." So she wrote letters in Ahab's name and placed a seal on them and sent them to the elders and nobles who lived in Naboth's city with him. So what we see here is that Ahab's not looking for a place to keep his summer home like King Cusco, but what he's actually looking for is a location for a vegetable garden. Okay, he wants Naboth's vineyard because he really values farm-to-table veggies that are really fresh. I mean, that's what he's all about, apparently. I have no idea why, and that's why he wants Naboth's vineyard, because it's close to the palace, and that way he can get his veggies as quickly as possible, I suppose. And it sounds like Ahab makes a really reasonable offer to Naboth. He says, "Look, I'll pay you what it's worth, or if you want, look, I'll give you a better vineyard. Maybe it's a little bit further away, but you can have that vineyard instead." Now, in present times, and with regards to current land prices, this actually sounds like a really good deal. I mean, here it is, the king is offering to pay you for this land or to give you a better piece of land. I mean, that sounds like a great deal. But that's not how Naboth viewed the request of the king. See, this wasn't a business transaction for Naboth, but this was a matter of obedience to God. Look at what it says in the book of Numbers, chapter 36. It states the following: No inheritance in Israel is to pass from one tribe to another, for every Israelite shall keep the tribal inheritance of their ancestors. See, in Israelite society, a family's plot of land was never to be separated from that family. This was their inheritance. It was passed down from generation to generation to generation. They viewed their plot of land as their piece of the covenant with God. You know, this agreement between God and his people, their land was part of that covenant. And so he rejects the king's offer because your inheritance, your part of the covenant was not to be sold off. It was not to be traded away. And so he says, no, I'm not doing it. And there's nothing that Ahab can do about that, which then leads Ahab to throwing just this major temper tantrum. He goes home, and I can just picture him like kicking and screaming on his bed, refusing to eat, like just acting like a really poorly acting 7-year-old. I mean, just isn't doing well. And Ahab's wife Jezebel then comes on the scene. And as we know, Jezebel has no desire to follow the God of Ahab. She has no desire to follow the rules of the Israelites. And so she's listening to him whine about how he can't get this plot of land that he wants. And Naboth's, he's being such a jerk, he won't let me have what I want. And she just kind of looks at him. She's like, are you the king or not? And she's kind of taunting him like, what are you doing? Like, you're the king. If you want a plot of land, you should just be able to take it. But she's saying that he's not going to do that. And so she sends him off. Go grab food. Go get something to eat, okay? And I'll take care of getting you that vineyard, okay? No worries. Now, Ahab has a moment here to use his power to do the right thing. And the right thing would be to tell his wife Jezebel, hey, don't worry about it, okay? Like, yes, I wanted the land. He said no. I'll find a different plot of land. It's fine. Don't take his land. It's part of the covenant. Like, don't worry about it. You know, he knows according to the law that he can't take this land. And he's starting to think, well, if Naboth says no to me, he's not going to say yes to my wife, who wants to bring in all these other gods and worship of these other gods. And so Ahab, I think, has to know that Jezebel is going to pull some sort of a power play to get her husband, the king, what he wants. And yet he seems fine to just go grab a sandwich as she concocts this plan to get him his vegetable garden that she wants. And what happens? We'll look again at verse 8. So she wrote letters in Ahab's name, placed his seal on them, and sent them to the elders and nobles who lived in Naboth's city with him. So what we have to understand is making a letter official from a king. To make it official, you know, they'd take a letter, maybe they roll it up, they drip some wax on it, and then the king would take his ring, would take his seal, and press it into that wax so that it's seen that this is officially from the king. And so what we see here is that Ahab didn't have any issues with Jezebel using that power, with using that official seal to make official decrees on his behalf. Now, we don't have time necessarily to go into Jezebel's plot and all the things that she does. I mean, if you have time, I'd encourage you to continue studying this passage and read what she does. But ultimately, she brings up these false charges against him, has him accused and convicted of cursing God and the king, and the penalty is death, and he is stoned to death. And so I want to then pick up the account in verse 15. As soon as Jezebel heard that Naboth had been stoned to death, she said to Ahab, "Get up and take possession of the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite that he refused to sell you. He is no longer alive, but dead." When Ahab heard that Naboth was dead, he got up and went down to take possession of Naboth's vineyard. Ahab doesn't even question what happened. What happened to Naboth? Like, how is he dead? Like, was it an accident? Like, he doesn't question anything. He doesn't care. The only thing that he does care about is getting up as quickly as possible and getting down to take possession of the vineyard that he's wanted this whole time. That's the only thing that we see him actually care about. He has no regard for what happened to one of his people, knowing full well that his wife is responsible for this man's death. King Ahab reigned in Israel for 22 years. And this is one of the only accounts that we have of how he ruled over his people, over the Israelites. He lords his power over them, and he allows harm to come to them so that he could get what he wants. And so it's hard to learn things on the positive side from Ahab and what he did right. Sometimes it's a lot easier to learn from the mistakes of others. And this negative example that we say in Ahab, regarding how do we use the power that we've been given. And ultimately, instead of using our power to glorify ourselves and to get what we want, we can ultimately glorify God by lifting up and empowering other people. God is the one who allows us to be in any position of power anyway, right? Whether that be in the public domain, in private business, in a school, in a church, in our communities, in our families. There's so many places where we can have various levels of power. But what does it mean for a follower of Jesus to be in a position of power? How are we to use that power? Well, it's best to listen to Jesus himself. So we're going to look at Matthew chapter 20 really quickly here, starting in verse 25. Jesus called them together and said, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be your slave, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." God has given us the power to lift up the powerless through this concept of servant leadership, of giving ourselves up for considering others greater than ourselves. Jesus gave up his own life, even though he was in the highest position of power. I'm very fortunate that I work for an organization that really wants to embody this idea of servant leadership. I work for a faith-based nonprofit called the Coffee Oasis, and the heart of what we do is serving the homeless teenage population here in Pierce County. And so I love working for an organization that we want to use our influence and our power to be able to serve those who don't have very much power, and to be able to serve the young people who are at risk and homeless in our community. And I'm especially thankful for Rainier View being just an incredible church partner, supporting the Coffee Oasis by sharing our stories via social media and email, serving our coffee on Sunday mornings, as well as financially contributing to the Coffee Oasis on a regular basis. And we are so thankful for that. It's because of great partners like RVCC that we can provide housing services through our shelter, which is the only homeless shelter for teenagers, again, in all of Pierce County. And that's a big deal, because every day in Pierce County, there are upwards of 200 homeless teens. We've only got 12 beds, so it feels like, well, is that making much of a difference? Well, it does for the 12 that can be there. And so we want to be able to increase that influence, and we do so by having more and more partners, and great ones like Rainier View. And beyond providing housing, within our drop-in center, we also provide mentorship for students. We provide various life skill classes where students can learn basic hygiene to financial literacy. We've got a Bible study about discovering Jesus. We provide, beyond the mentorship, we also provide job training through our coffee shops. And we want to be able to provide things and resources for these youth that have been disregarded by so many who have the power to help. And so one of the things that we love to do is we love to host these monthly Friday night events where youth between 13 and 25 can come and hang out and get food and just have what a lot would consider just a normal night for a teenager, but it's not very normal for them. And so we had this event in October called Hit the Hay. And it's kind of happens around the end of the month, and so it's a night where they could come, and we had face painting, and we had a bunch of food and candy and pumpkins that they could decorate, and a bunch of games, and it was just such a fun night. And some of the youth who attended said that it was one of the best nights of their life, which is really awesome and kind of heartbreaking at the same time. Because I think for so many teenagers, they would just take a night flight like, this is great. But for somebody to say, this is one of the best nights of my life. Yeah, and so specifically within Rainier View, I want to thank our Joy Givers group and that they are actually providing the food for our November night of thankfulness. And they have stepped up in huge ways to serve this younger generation. I love it so much. And they are providing various snacks and hygiene products and so much more to be able to use their power to help those who have little power. And I love that so much. Now, I just want you to imagine for a minute what it would be like to be 14, 15, 16, 17 years old and to be homeless. I think most of us can remember how hard it is to be a teenager, to be going through things like puberty, and then imagine being homeless on top of that. That's where my friend Christian found himself earlier this year, and so we just have a short video. I'd love you to learn a little bit more about Christian and his story.
I got kicked out of my place when I was late 17-ish, and I was kind of on my own for a little bit. But I was going to high school at the same time, so going to high school with a tent sleeping bag raises eyebrows.
Some youth come to us with a lot of safety needs, right? Maybe it's not safe at home and they need somewhere to stay for the night because they don't have another option. Some youth come to us after having, arguments with family, some kind of family crisis breakup. Others have been homeless for years, and this is just what they're used to and what they know, and they know that we're here to support them through that.
My high school counselor had connected me with a friend named Julie. She had connected me with the loft, so I got in here, shot up the wait list because I needed one at that exact moment. I basically stayed up there for about 3 months. They allowed me to continue going to school, which if the coffee oasis wasn't there, I absolutely would have had to drop out. I suppose it just gave me a second chance. It gave me time to collect myself, because if it wasn't for the coffee oasis, I would have been in a tent and a sleeping bag. Yeah, once I aged out, which is once I turned 18, I need to move on, and I left, but right before then I was able to catch myself a job here.
I think there is definitely a larger need for more programming, more support. We have a lot of people in the community that really, really care about this population. A lot of people we work with very directly, other organizations who are super supportive. We all work together, and it's really, really awesome to be able to do that. But it feels like it's never enough when you're looking at a full waiting list all the time, because we don't have, beds for everybody that needs one. One thing that I hope every youth leaves our building knowing is that Jesus loves them, and there will always be somebody in their life who wants to see them succeed and who wants to be there for them. And sometimes all they have to do is reach out.
So I got to meet Christian shortly after I started working at the Coffee Oasis. I went upstairs one night for one of the shelter house meetings, and I made them bacon mac and cheese so I could get to know him. And I helped him introduce him to our business manager, because he was old enough that he could actually work in our coffee shops, and he was looking to get some employment. And it didn't take very long for him to start visiting me. He would kind of come into the drop-in center from the coffee shop, and he would hang out in my office, and we would just kind of talk on his breaks. And then, as you probably saw in the video, and then we started playing chess. This kid loves chess, loves it. He asked me, Mike, do you play chess? I haven't played in 30 years, but sure, let's play. And he regularly kicks my butt in chess. I'll win maybe 1 out of 8 or 9 games against him. But it's just fun that this guy, he's willing to take his time and breaks to hang out with me. It was over a game of chess that he asked me, if I was a Christian. He allowed me to share kind of my journey of faith with Jesus with him as we were playing chess. And I'm, he's not in a place where he's ready to give his life to Jesus, and that's only God knows. But I am so willing, or so thankful that he is willing to share his life with me, and I'm excited for what God has in store for him in the future. So what does that have to do with power, though? We've been talking about power today. Well, I personally believe that the way that we use our time is a form of power. How we use we're all given the same number of hours in a day, the same number of days in a week, the same weeks in a year, months in a year, all that kind of stuff. We're all given the same amount of time, but how are we using that time? Time is a form of power. And so we can use our time by giving some of it away, by using it to serve others, to be with others, to empower them. And so what I want us to do as we're wrapping up here is I want you to consider how you are using your various forms of power. And so I just want to talk about 3 of them. And I don't think we normally think of these things as power, but I want us to first think about, yes, the power of your time. And how do you use your time? You know, maybe it's time for you to start using that power to serve other people. And maybe it's here within the church. Maybe it's serving in kids ministry or student ministries. Maybe it's going through the 4 hours of training to become a mentor at the Coffee Oasis and to be able to mentor some of these youth that come into our drop-in center. Maybe it's volunteering in your local school. Okay, I'm married to a middle school teacher, and I can tell you they need extra help in the schools. They need extra help in the classrooms. Maybe it's time for you to use some of that power of time to serve other people. The next one is the power of your gifting. Okay, God has given us all different gifts and abilities and skills, and so maybe you can use some of that power to be a blessing to other people. You know, one of the local ministry partners to Rainier View is Habitat for Humanity, and so maybe if you've got some of those skills that you're pretty good at swinging a hammer or some other tool. You can tell I'm not one of those people, but maybe you can use those skills with Habitat for Humanity to build a home. Or maybe you get involved with RVCC's Sowing Seeds group, that they make all sorts of hats and scarves. They gave us so many hats and scarves to be able to give to the youth here in the winter months, you know, and around Christmas time, to be such an incredible blessing. You know, maybe it's using your power of gifting to borrow the RVCC landscaping trailer and the tools to go take care of somebody's yard in your neighborhood. Maybe it's somebody that can't do it themselves, and maybe that's how you use your power of time and gifting to serve them. And finally, there's the power of our resources. You know, the income that we have, the things that we have access to. You know, Rainier View is so good about creating opportunities for us to be able to use our resources to bless others. And so I'd encourage you to strongly consider being part of the Giving Tree this year. Participate in Winterfest. Again, if you want to get involved with the Coffee Oasis, we've got the Family Christmas Project that you can learn about on our website. You know, maybe it's becoming a monthly donor to the Coffee Oasis or Bridges of Love Northwest or CareNet. And maybe it's like, well, I don't have that much that I can donate. Well, okay, what can you give? What are you able to do? Sometimes we put these limits on, like, well, it's not really a worthwhile gift unless I'm giving this much. Well, don't put that limit on yourself. Consider what you can give right now. Take that step of faith and to be able to give and to be able to bless somebody with a little bit of that power of resources. And again, I want us to remember from Ahab's negative example, when we're not showing respect to God and we're not honoring God, the one who is in power over everything, if we're not respecting him and honoring him, then we won't respect those that we have power over. And so I want to encourage you, church, make the choice to honor God by using your power of time, your power of gifting, your power of resources to love and to serve others. Thanks so much for watching today. Be blessed and go share that love with somebody else.